We often say in simple terms, the best time to sell something is right after you've sold something, because there's an attitude there or a vibe or an energy or a mojo that the customer picks up. So the challenge is in a bad week, bad month, whatever's going on, is to maintain that so you still allow yourself to take advantage of whatever sales opportunities you have in front of you. And without a good attitude, you can't have a good process because you can't use whatever process you know. You won't have a good work ethic, and the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Welcome to the Reid Method Insider, a podcast for emerging and established sales professionals or anyone seeking career advancement, inspiration, or business development, with personal development and high-level success strategies by sales coach, acclaimed speaker, and author of the Reid Method, Reid. Listen, practice, prosper.
Our guest tonight boasts a diverse background and is a consultant, sales trainer, and a strategist. He entered the automotive space when he was just 16 years old. Yep. That's amazing. Yep. From running a lube rack, a lot attendant, selling cars, operating the family used car business, which you still do today?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Sure do. Yep.
Car loans officer, and a big break to a national sales trainer of a major brand.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
And I see here in your bio you talk about believing where you quoted, your failures will propel you as much as your successes if you reflect and be thankful in everything that you use as an opportunity to improve yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay. And in simple terms, you show everyone how to work harder on themselves than they do on their business or their company.
That's the goal.
Exactly. And this is a philosophy that you and I are very familiar with because, as you know, Jim Rohn and Earl Schoaf, or who learned from Earl Schoaf,
absolutely,
back in the day, talks about this a lot, working harder on yourself than you do on your job.
That's right.
And so welcome to the show. It's episode 26. And for those of us on the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, today in this episode, we're talking about the four top characteristics of super sales achievers. And I've got a national sales trainer here with me, in fact, who's going to help us out and give us lots of tips and strategies as we dive into these four characteristics.
Awesome, Everald. Good.
So welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So so back to Jim Rohn and Earl Schoaf. We a lot of us are students of those gentlemen because we know for a fact Tony Robbins was in many of Jim Rohn's classes.
That's right.
When for coaching and
he started off selling Jim Rohn, actually.
Selling Jim Rohn courses. Yeah, you're right.
That's what he was doing.
That's right.
Yep.
And it's funny because I've had the pleasure of having Tom Hopkins on the show.
Very good.
A couple of times already, and he's and folks, Tom Hopkins is coming back on December 7th. He's going to be here again. We're going to be talking about his book When Buyers Say No, and also a couple other subjects. But he also mentioned to me, I was with him in Dallas the other day, and he goes, "Yeah, we had this tall guy, like many years ago, obviously." He goes, "We had this tall guy sitting in the back of the studio, and we were saying, oh, find a chair for that guy because he's standing up." Yep. But he, in fact, was already sitting down.
Tony's a big man.
Because he's so tall.
Yeah, he's 6'. I've met him a few times, like 6'8", 6'9". He's huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very good. So we've known these super successful sales trainers and people who are influencers, and even though Jim Rohn has passed and Earl Schoaf has passed, his legacy and his messaging, was so ABC and so simple that everybody learns from it today still, and practices a lot of those principles. So, I know I watch a lot of his videos. I know I take a look at a lot of your stuff, and your website's great, actually.
Thank you.
So we'll talk about that and leave that with the audience and everything before. Okay. And you've published some books.
I have 3 of them now on Amazon,
It's amazing.
Thank you.
I have some catching up to do to all of you.
Okay.
Because, I'm just on my first one, but, there's still time and, hanging out with guys like you and Tom Hopkins, who's published 18.
Wow.
So...
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of time.
It's a lot of work. And so we definitely got some... I have some catching up to do there, but that's okay. So tell us, we talk about working harder on yourself than you do on your job. And once I got to understand that, I started my personal development late in life, I'd say. I should have really paid more attention earlier. But once I understood it and, in the way Jim Rohn came across with it and came so simple, how does that, how does that impact you?
Personal development?
Yeah.
For me, it started at a younger age, which I'll get to a little bit later when we talk about my personal story. But it's, it's a lifestyle. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
I set my goals. I write my goals down. I look at my gratitudes every day. Those are both written. I find when I do the gratitudes, which is what I call positive reflections, and I do my goals, which are positive projections, it places me mentally, spiritually, physically in a space where I feel like I'm in control and I'm directing my own life. So to get certain things happening for us, we have to realize that for things to change for us, things have to change about us.
We have to change, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
We know all these famous lines, these
Yes.
mantras and slogans or whatever.
Yes.
But when you actually take them to heart and realize the relevancy and that they're just logical statements, then your next biggest challenge is looking for the missing piece of information. And now with the internet, there's no lack of information. There's books, there's courses, there's people like you doing these great podcasts. So people have to decide their direction in life, and then with an open-minded but very skeptical attitude, which is extremely hard. You have to be open-minded but skeptical. You move forward and you try to find tools and mentors that are going to help you get what you want.
Absolutely. And, even the most successful people have mentors.
And you
coaches.
always need one.
And you always need
Or
one.
some,
Or some in different areas,
Yeah.
for sure. So multiple jobs during school. What possessed you to do all of that?
We all have these little pivotal moments of people in relationships. My father was a big, big part of my life. And one thing my dad instilled in me when I was young, because he did the same thing, was to get as many jobs as you can. I often had 2, 3, 4 jobs at a time through high school, university, to try to figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you like, what you don't like. So when you end up actually at a certain age, you're ready to attack the workforce on a full-time basis, you already have some idea of your own tendencies.
Yeah, so those are good lessons, during, because sometimes my own kids had 2 or 3 jobs now, and they're going through their phases of learning what they like, what they don't like, and how the real world works.
Exactly.
In terms of what's required for success. So, and we go from that to some sudden massive wake-up calls that you had in your lifetime. So, so tell me, as your quote says, that you were forced to evolve or dissolve.
Yep.
And you made some choices. So tell us about that part of your success journey.
So those formative years, late teens, early 20s, all kinds of different things, jobs, lots of sports always involved in my life, always stayed out of drugs and kind of trouble that way, had lots of diverse friends. When I hit about 16, I kind of lost touch with some of my family, some personal stuff there. Nothing unusual for teenage guys.
Yeah.
It's typical stuff. I don't know if it's testosterone or stubbornness or all of it. But anyways, so I
Usually
disconnected.
it's all of it.
It's all of it. Bad friends, bad girlfriends, all that stuff. So I just started to disconnect from my family.
Yeah.
And that was hard on me because I was very close with my family. I've got a Italian European background.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a distancing, and then I got engaged. And when I got engaged when I was 22, she is still my wife, and we were good friends in high school. She got Hodgkin's disease.
Yes.
At that time, there was not really a big success rate with that. So I didn't know what was going to happen. So that was a real kick in the ass. So we continued to plan the wedding and all this stuff, and she's going through her cancer treatments, and we're trying to finish university. I dropped out of my last year university to help her with that. And then shortly after we got married, my best friend died from a brain aneurysm.
Wow.
Yeah, on Friday, October the 13th. He was only 22. Had no idea he had that. You don't know you have these things very often. Had a landscaping business as one of my many, many things I did entrepreneur-wise when I was younger. And my property maintenance landscape business, about a year and a half later or so, I think my business partner died from lung cancer.
Jeez.
Stopped talking to some other members of my family from some things that were going on. I was trying to go back to school to get my degree. I took a 14.75% mortgage on our first house. I was repossessing cars at this time because the Chrysler dealership I was working at had gone under. And anyways, I had no bearing, I had no direction, and I had no support that I could find. And everybody's sick, dying, disappearing, or bankrupt. So one day at that time, I was working for GMAC, actually, who's now no longer around. I got hired there when I was like 20, almost 23, and was doing repossessions and this type of stuff and credit. And I hated my job, and I was making good money, and I found a posting in the office that required 6 days a week travel. I didn't know what the job was. I didn't care. I wanted to travel.
You just wanted to travel.
So I had to run and escape and get away, and just literally accidentally fell backwards into a training position because I'd worked at a dealership before. I was now in corporate. They were starting to roll out a training program, and what I didn't know what happened was I really got introduced to the sales industry, sales development industry, and personal development, and it was exactly what I needed. It was fresh answers for me. It was fresh skills. Perspective,
Yeah.
new people, mentors, successful people. I had never been exposed to that before. And I get pretty obsessive with stuff, and I think it's going to work for me. And I started to not drink the Kool-Aid, but direct inject it.
Nice.
And it changed me completely. So when I started going back out in dealerships, I was extremely good at what I was doing on the training and sales side. And then on the personal side, which most people didn't know I was having any issues because I'm a very private person.
Mm-hmm.
I was just coming back alive. And then I started reading, all these people you just talked about.
Yeah.
I find myself in the bookstores. Didn't even know there's a self-help section.
Yeah,
And
me
it started
too.
to change
There's so
me.
many books. Like that's actually probably the fastest growing section right now in bookstores.
Yeah.
Because there's so much learning going on and so much. Yeah. And I wish I had embraced personal development at a much earlier age. I really did. I mean, there were, you always chose to learn things. Like I learned to fly airplanes. I learned to do different things, cook, sell, manage stores. I was in management at a very early age. But beyond that, you were just engulfed in working rather than working for a company, making a living rather than working on yourself.
Exactly.
To forward your own space. And so you embraced entrepreneurship at a young age, because you had a painting business, a landscaping business. What possessed you to take that plunge?
Okay. So in between all the jobs and the McDonald's and the grocery stores and construction and everything, what inspired me there again, and I've really actually never been asked that, and now I'm thinking about it right now. My first foray into business, I got a patent on a novelty item.
Wow.
And I called it the Sneaky Cheeky.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was supposed to be, folks, the ultimate fart machine. And it didn't quite work out because none of you have heard of it. And the reason why I did that was my father was a machinist. He was very, very talented, and he actually used to have the engineers at his company consult with him. My dad never went to school for it. He didn't finish grade school. But he got his papers when he came from Europe, and he was a masterful machinist. And he had patents through the company he worked at, which was Labatt's. On machines that were the size of half of this building. And what I saw happening with his hard work and his sweat and tears and genius, and he was happy to do it. He had a great career. I'm not knocking Labatt's or any other company. But when you work for a corporation, you develop things.
Yeah.
It's the companies.
Yes.
Right? And I always thought, okay, if he had the connections or the gumption or the balls or the money or something, if this was his patent, I mean, these machines are now still in use in every brewery around the planet. I mean, he used to come up with the patents. I've seen pictures of them all over the place.
Yeah.
And so when I was young, I thought, you know what? If I develop a great idea, I want to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
So the patent on the novelty item was my first attempt to do that. Now, make a long story short, what ended up happening with it, we ended up actually getting some contracts to supply to novelty chains and things that way. Except they basically, based on what they thought they could retail it for, I couldn't sell it to them for more than $1, but I couldn't find a way to produce it for less than $2.
Wow. So
I was instantly out of business. But I learned a ton. And from there, it was then a whole bunch of other things because you start to grow into it. You start to realize what's working, what's not working, get the, some knowledge you don't have.
And I always chalk all of that stuff up to experience. And some of it is necessary. Some of it you say, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And then you may realize at some point in your life, that's why I went through that experience.
Yeah.
Because now you know how to handle it going forward.
Yeah.
Or you can come up with an idea and, obviously make sure you benefit from it instead of other people like your dad where it ends up going to the company. So that's great. So as we talked about, you were with GMAC and so on. And
7 years.
7 years. And you started training sales managers, salespeople, and business managers. Yep. So, but along the way there, you met some people, or you met someone that really helped to propel your career. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it really began inside the company. So Max Scigliano, if you're listening, you're on Facebook, we're friends. He was really a personal savior to me. I was going through a lot of personal stuff.
Good.
We became good friends. He was my manager. I ended up becoming the lead trainer for Canada. and I worked under his tutelage for a number of years. And he, in a really nice, kind, loving way, helped me. He didn't even know it. And Max, we've talked about this since. You didn't know it at the time, but really helped emotionally pull me out of what I was in through his support. One of the reasons why I wanted to do what I was doing too at the time, I had a couple of bosses that I was working for at that time back in London that I just could not work for anymore. It was not a fit for me in many regards. And I looked at the training opportunity as a way not just to travel, but to develop some skills that I would own for my life so I wouldn't have to rely on bosses I didn't like.
And while you travel, you always run into so many different experiences with so many different people.
Very true.
You know, because I traveled for 8 years. After getting out of the automotive business, I traveled extensively to 41 states, 8 provinces, hundreds of cities, hundreds of little towns.
Yep.
You know, to the extent where it was super elite status with Air Canada for 7 straight years. You know,
I was there,
and as you know, that's 100,000 miles or 100 flight segments. That was a lot of airplanes.
Yes, it is.
Right. So, but what that taught me too, because it was after that, after returning from that work to the automotive retail space, where that's when I wrote the book, because I'm like, things haven't changed in automotive that much.
Right.
You know, the technology's better on the cars, the buildings are more ultra modern, but the sales process still was just lacking.
Yes.
You know, and I just thought, well, with 20 plus years under my belt, why don't I just share my perspective?
Yeah.
And because one of the things I learned about while traveling, and I'm sure you did this too, well, you know, while you were, you know, training across and meeting all these people and, you know, getting all these new experiences, was I always left every client that I sold an ad to, whether it be in New Mexico or Virginia or Medicine Hat, Alberta, or somewhere like that. I always left and I asked myself, why? You know, because selling advertising, they may see you once and never again.
Yep.
You know, and I always left asking, why did they buy? Why did they spend so much money? And there's always a fundamental reason where it's you. It comes down to the salesperson. Comes down to, you know, the experience and so on. So I can relate to what you're saying and how people along the way changes your perspective.
Yeah, my next big mentor after that was Joe Girard. So Guinness Book of World Record salesperson in the car business that got a hold of me in 2007. And I did seminar with him. I'm good friends with his son and his wife. And when you're around with somebody with that caliber of a record and understanding how they think and how they operate, it's a whole other entirely new blueprint on maybe what you should be doing. So yeah, that would be my second biggest mentor.
And that actually, you beat me to the punch here, because I was going to ask you about that. You know, to share with the audience your proudest moment, career moment, and why. And I think that might be one of them.
Oh, it's probably the one.
Yeah, because of the Hall of Fame appearance or something like that.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening, I mean, if you're a golfer, you know, if you're a pro playing for some golf club, wherever you're playing, that was the equivalent of like Tiger Woods calling you up out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
And saying, I want to play around with you at Pebble Beach in front of cameras. And why are you calling me? And that was the call I got.
Yeah.
So there was some stuff I had to go through with him and make sure that, you know, we got along and everything was fine. But when you're on stage in the Detroit Automotive Hall of Fame, where all the top people in the car business get inaugurated, and Joe wanted to do a speech, it's big, there for his inauguration. He invited me to do it with him, so I did about an hour and a half. He did an hour and a half. His son got up and spoke.
That's
his wife
huge
was there.
stage time.
And my family was there. My father, my mother, my children, my wife, everybody was there, my sister. So I can't think. I mean, just look at the people when I look out in that group in my own mind and who was there and doing. I don't know how I would ever, quite frankly, top that.
Yeah, that's amazing
On a personal and professional level.
And the one thing I found out recently, because I had a little bit of an encounter with Tom Hopkins as well. You know, not as big a scale or anything like that, but the fact that these people who are ultra successful do try to help others and to lift others up. Yep. Because I attended, after he was on my show a couple of times, I attended one of his training in Dallas, and I was shocked when the first person in front of hundreds of people he introduced to the crowd was me and my book and my show.
Wow.
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
Yeah, and to the point where we were at the first break, everybody was rushing over to me. What show is he talking about?
That's a nice boost. That's a nice little bit of marketing.
I know.
Yeah, a little endorsement. That's awesome.
So it was great.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And now we have a little bit of a We're working together a little bit, and he's going to be appearing on the show again on the 7th, December 7th. But there are great people out there who want to see others successful, just like you. Who helped you along the way through those personal times through your career, as am I. And we welcome, and obviously we always say why. Why me? Yeah. But then when you look back, why not? Why not you? Why the hell not you?
And, on the sales training side, years ago when I started, and the same thing in a dealership, what I tell salespeople is, in this year, 10 years, whatever the time period is, somebody's going to be number one.
Yeah.
Why can't it be you?
Absolutely.
And I took the exact same mindset in the sales training space. Somebody's got to be number one. Why can't it be me? That's very true.
I like that. So you've been listening to the Reid Method Insider podcast, folks. It's episode 26 where Dwayne Marino and I are here. Just going to dive into 4 top characteristics of super sales achievers. I always have trouble with that word.
That's okay.
And the 4 that you mentioned, and when we talked about earlier on the list, I could see why you picked those 4. Okay. Because the first one that we'll dive into, attitude, I think can pretty much set the stage for whether you're successful or not. Yeah. So attitude is everything, as you say.
Totally.
So why does it keep popping up, in my opinion, to be constantly addressed?
In sales, you get a lot of rejection. You have a lot of challenges. You have a lot of criterias and quotas you're supposed to meet. When you first start out, everybody starts in the bottom 20%. And if you're able to get to the top 20%, that's fine. But everybody's got to start there. So your attitude as you try to dig yourself up out of the ditch or to the top of the pole or whatever else is what's going to fuel your ability to use whatever skills people are teaching you to use. And, we often say in simple terms, the best time to sell something is right after you've sold something, because there's an attitude there or a vibe or an energy or a mojo that the customer picks up. So the challenge is in a bad week, bad month, whatever's going on, is to maintain that so you still allow yourself to take advantage of whatever sales opportunities you have in front of you. And without a good attitude, you can't have a good process because you can't use whatever process you know. You won't have a good work ethic, and the whole thing's going to fall apart.
So while I was doing, a little bit of research for this particular episode, and I came across another Jim Rohn quote where it's attitude drives action, action drives results, and the result drives the lifestyle. Right? So it all starts with that attitude, because it's obviously your great attitude that, in the GMAC days or the GM days that led someone to, stick up for you. It's obviously your attitude where you'd get a call from Joe Girard, and after talking to you, would invite you on such a magnificent stage, or a setting that would propel your career. So one of the another quote I want to read for the audience, because there's a lot said in this quote, another Jim Rohn quote. He says, "By your attitude, we decide to read or not to read. By your attitude, we decide to try or to give up. By your attitude, we blame ourselves or our failures, or we blame others. Our attitude determines whether we tell the truth or lie, act or procrastinate, advance or recede. And by our own attitude, we and we alone actually decide whether to succeed or fail." And action is something that has become now a part of my routine, and I'm always double checking and triple checking whether I take action. And this podcast was as a result of taking action, because I was listening to the Success Magazine podcast where Mel Robbins was on, author of the 5-second rule, and she was talking about how she hated being a lawyer, and she was speaking here and there a little bit and how that evolved. But it's all about, when you think of an idea, instead of procrastinating and planning forever, you got to start or take action. So this is where, and that's all based on an attitude, because that attitude is driving, you towards taking the potential action and having the discipline to take the action.
That's right.
Yeah. So, which leads to the next success tip, and a big characteristics of top sales super achievers, and that is focus. This is one topic right now.
Yes.
I'm studying a lot about focus, and the one person that keeps driving messages, to my inbox about this is Darren Hardy of Success Magazine.
Okay.
He talks a lot about focus and how the lack of focus drains productivity and, because it drains your concentration and all this. So from your perspective, why is focus such a big factor?
As a result of hyper acute focus, top salespeople are stubborn. They're ultra competitive. They're obsessive because they're always thinking about what they want, what they want out of life, and what they want out of their day. So if you're easily pulled off course by negative media, negative customers, reports that come out that say, we're going into a recession, and you should look at recessions as a time to put your foot in the gas more if it happens.
Exactly.
Right now, again, talking about focus, and I was talking about this today with the sales group I was at, and today is November the
23rd. Yeah.
Okay, 2017. Crane indexes in North America are at an all-time high, which is a big indication how economies are doing. Construction starts almost an all-time high. Stock market all-time high. Consumer debt is dropping. The automotive sector, we just hit another record month, followed by a record quarter, record year. But you don't see that on the news because, if it bleeds, it leads. It's always negative. So people are like, it's that good? It's just that they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I said, go on your phone and check it out. So depending on what you want to pay attention to all day long, it's going to dictate how you see things. And you don't have to have a good economy to be successful in sales. You need a good internal economy.
Absolutely.
It's a 6 inches between your ears. And that's really what's going to drive your business because successful salespeople do well in good economies and bad. And actually, Joe Girard's best years were in the worst automotive years in Michigan because he looked at it like, here's my opportunity. Everybody else is going to retreat and collapse and get depressed. So if the market's going to recede by 20, 30, 40% or whatever it would be in Michigan when it collapses, he goes, I'm going to come at it 3 times harder. And he ended up having his best years because everybody else lost focus, were his best years in car sales. So focus, you've got to be obsessive. You've got to really just keep focusing on what you want and not take, anything other than that for a, personal answer by the time you go to bed at night.
Yeah, and this is something that sometimes it just requires so much discipline to remain focused because with things like this, and we all have 2, 3 of them or in other devices and people coming at us from all different angles. It's easy to get distracted and to lose your focus, and it's so hard to get refocused after you're distracted.
Yes.
And then your whole day goes by and you go, what the hell did I accomplish? Or you're frustrated because you lack the discipline to maintain your focus.
And part of discipline is you have to learn how to say no.
Yes.
Sometimes no to yourself. No, I'm not going to go to the party. I'm going to stay, at the office and do this. No, I'm not going to sleep in. I'm going to go to the gym. No, I'm not going to go chase that customer because it's a waste of my time and money based on I only have so much time in the day. I'm going to go in this direction. So discipline is often more a function of no than yes, and that ties right in with your distractions.
So we have somebody saying hi from Langley Chrysler.
Oh, good. Hello, Langley Chrysler on Facebook. How are you?
And Adam Abel, Camden McInnes.
Yes. Hey, guys.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in.
Nice.
That's great. So focus. We're talking about 4 top characteristics of sales superachievers, and we started off with attitude being a driver, and then focus, ultra focus. So here's a little tip I'll leave. People always say that they'll never be able to get things done, or everyone can do this job without getting overwhelmed. But in truth, the negativity that accompanies the external interruption is what makes focus so difficult. So the solution is to pay attention to your mental state. When you catch yourself projecting negative statements, reverse them. When you say, okay, I will get this done successfully, or I'm capable of focusing and getting the job done on time, take advantage of the power of your mind to program a habitual positive outlook. So there's always different ways of being focused. And number one, if you have something to do, and this is stuff I'm learning again from Success Magazine and Darren and so many different people, yourself, we're talking about how to block off those, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, where you literally don't even look at the phone. Because that's very important.
Yes, it is.
And there's a study out right now that say the people who are able to focus like 20 minutes at a time
Yep.
in blocks
Yeah.
are going to be the future super achievers.
Yes.
Because because you can get so much done in 20 minutes if you actually don't. The 20 minutes of focused effort is really an hour and a half when you're being interrupted.
Probably more. But I
Probably
agree.
more.
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's why focus is such a big deal. The next is, and I love this one, body language, because in sales, body language has a lot to do with success or failure.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you use body language and how do you read it? I mean, that's a typical question. So what do you think?
Okay. In sales, you only have language and body language to study and get better at. And we know that body language is the majority of what people pick up in your communication. So I'm looking in showrooms and when I'm selling and in my classrooms, I think a lot of people are not really conscious of what their body language is projecting to other people. And they may not even be feeling that, but your body language is saying that. So everything from how you breathe and which way you're facing and your posture and your pace of movement, this is all projecting something to somebody at some point. So you've got to become aware of the fact that in sales, we often say salespeople are actors. Some people don't like that term because they almost feel like it's you're not being yourself. That's not true. You're trying to create an impact with the client at that particular moment, at that stage of the sale, and your body language has to be appropriate to that situation on the projection side. On what you're receiving and what you're reading, I'm a sales trainer that still sells what I teach people to sell. So I still sell cars. My licensing is still good. I'm registered with a dealer group here. I obviously do, and which is a good thing. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
So we're trying to walk the talk every day, and we're seeing how the market changes, right? And we're met with success or failure. And I also, like you, still take training.
See, and I like where you're going here with this because I know a lot of sales trainers or some sales trainers that have become sales trainers from case studies and reading books but have not really sold.
Or haven't sold recently.
Right.
Right.
There's a big difference because you could sell 20 years ago and it was a totally different time. Okay.
Totally. Yep.
I was selling 28 years ago and I'm still selling today. So I've seen a little bit of a transition here, folks. It's not just computer and software and in a dealership.
That's right.
I remember when we had one computer in the whole dealership.
Yeah.
I remember when we were working leases manually.
Right.
And you remember
worksheets, absolutely.
Worksheets. So,
Yeah.
so it's different now, and obviously we've evolved and learned, and here we are because we've invested in ourselves and we've learned some of these principles and characteristics.
Right.
But more importantly, we walk the walk.
Yeah.
And what we're offering here today as as some suggestions and solutions is because it's worked for us.
Absolutely.
And it's worked for you. So what about my next big one is goal setting, and I'm glad that I asked you to pick them because I probably would have picked the same before.
Okay.
Because I monitor my numbers daily.
Yep.
I have a very extensive worksheet that everybody at work, they either make fun of me of or ask me for a copy of.
Yep.
I have a projection of my income.
Yep.
So every paycheck, I literally insert it, and it tells me my projected income based on my goal.
Yeah, good.
And I also know I'm close to doing 200 vehicles for the year. I'm hoping I get there. That's my big goal. And and this is while doing all of this. It's not easy to do 200 cars in a premium brand.
I was going to say, if they don't know, you sell Lexus.
Yeah.
That's an outstanding number at a high line.
Yeah. So it's
That's
work.
Outstanding. It sure is.
It's work. And then we left. I mean, I left work to come down here to the studio, and you left, the east end of Toronto, and we both drove an hour and a half in traffic.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's part of our discipline. It's part of our goal setting. We had this goal, and here we are now.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so effective goal setting. Why is it so essential to one's success, you think?
It has to do with brainwashing yourself, convincing yourself, programming yourself of what you want every day. So you're always reinforcing that. That ties in with the focus and the stubbornness and being super organized and obsessive and competitive, and goal setting fits in with all that. So sooner or later, people have to realize that having written goals and looking at them every day are important. Then you've got to look at your goals and always be self-aware and honest and ask yourself, am I putting in the time or the effort? Do I have the right skills? And am I putting the activities that are going to help me hit this goal? And if not, then you have to either change the goal or you have to get better with the activities. So you start rigging the game so that you're winning all the time or that you're in a position to win or losing more. losing less. But this doesn't happen unless you do it regularly. You just can't New Year's resolution yourself into success because we know the success rate of that. It doesn't work. It's got to be very, very regular.
Yeah, absolutely. Plan and monitor. I talk about in my book about planning and monitoring objectives. So don't bother setting the goals if you're not going to monitor.
Absolutely.
You know, so you'll probably even forget what you set in the first place. So monitoring is the key in daily, you know. So there's a mindset to goal setting, and, you know, so you have to define, you know, so if you're planning your goal, you have to define what the objective is.
Yeah.
You know?
Make sure it's evidence-based and measurable.
Yes.
Don't just say you want to sell more cars or sell more houses. You have to say, I want to sell this many cars by this date. So you have an evidence-based system, so you know when you're getting close.
So I had here an example.
Yeah.
A goal would be, okay, I want to sell $10,000 in products this month.
Okay.
Or I want to earn $120,000 this year.
Okay.
Or this month, or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So, you know, specific. And then from there, you can work backwards.
Right.
And then you have to have a plan to succeed. How do your goals break down?
Yep.
Quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily goals.
Yeah.
And then third, how to execute that plan.
Right.
Right. So a baseline amount of time. How much time does it take each day? How many people will you call each day? How many emails will you send? How many follow-ups will you do?
Yep. And in as many platforms as you can.
Yeah.
Social media, video, texting, mail, email, face-to-face, phone. Like, take a multi-prong approach.
Yeah.
So you have a better probability of getting a hold of people.
Yeah.
And having an impact based on whatever medium they respond to.
That's right. So you're reinforcing your goals so that you can stay motivated while you're at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So keeping those records, keeping those lists, and successful people all have lists. They know exactly where they stand.
Yes.
Every minute of the day.
Yes, they do.
And that's the key to successful sales super achievers. So we've been on the Reid Method Insider podcast. It's episode 26, folks, with Dwayne Marino, who's authored 3 books. He's an international sales trainer.
Yes.
Being on stage with Joe Girard.
Yeah.
You know, who is one of the all-time greats, if not the, you know, most recent all-time great.
Yeah.
And what else?
Online training. We've got 3,000 videos that people can get to behind our paywall. We have lots of stuff in social media for free.
That's a lot of time. Like,
we were just talking about that.
1,000 videos.
And growing. I just got a message from my film guy that we had another 15 ready to push onto the website. So, videos are a lot of time and a lot of effort and money, and you know that.
You've done 3,000. I did. I was in studio a couple of weeks ago recording 3 modules. Oh, my God. Just the standing. I got to get used to standing that long.
I know. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
And, you know, I started that project when my father was dying.
Wow.
My best friend, and I've got to get up in front of a camera. My first year of filming. It took me 2 years to get the baseline, and you know, I was dealing with that. So, there's never perfect conditions.
I know. So and you can wait and until the time is so-called perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like you. I was weaving that in between my travel and my work and my father in the hospital and the video in the studio. Like, it's just Reid, go ahead. But it's just there's never a right time, perfect time. Sometimes you just got to do it.
You just got to do it.
Yeah. Suck it up.
And sometimes that's what keeps you going, right?
Yeah.
And helps you to deal with those other adversities.
Big, you know, for me, working out and work have been my 2 distractions when things get tough in my life. And that's been way more productive than alcohol or drugs. Some people go to that, but I go to work and working out, and I usually get a big benefit afterwards.
One actually pays you. The other one costs you a lot.
In lots of ways. Yeah, in lots of ways.
Yeah, so it's not a good idea.
No.
So this has been great. This has been a great episode. Thank you so much. Episode number 26 of the Reid Method podcast. Your feedback to email address, your feedback email address is insider@thereidmethod.com. That's insider, like the Reid Method Insider. Insider@thereidmethod.com with your feedback and suggestions and comments.
Go to my website, folks.
Yes.
Yeah, www.dwaynemarino.com. Subscribe for whatever you want, my social media stuff. And buy my books and CDs and online training, all that stuff, or come to a seminar.
Yeah. So he's got 3 books. You can buy his 3 and buy my 1 book. You have your
that's
collection
right.
of 4.
Exactly.
To start. Yeah. But you know, we're not here just to talk about selling books or buying books. We really just want to contribute back to you know, our followers or anyone out there seeking, as my podcast Brand Promise is for anyone seeking career advancement in sales, personal development, or business development, so that you can take your success to the next level.
That's right.
And check out the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, wherever else they have podcasts. I had nothing to do with setting all of that up, so
Yeah.
And yes, and stay tuned, guys. We have Tom Hopkins coming back again on December 7th. We're going to be talking about some great things. The subject of that episode will be how to stand out in the crowd. And he's got some great tips on that.
Obscurity is the death of salespeople.
I know, eh?
Nobody can find you. How do they find you?
How do you find? Yeah. So how to stand out in the crowd.
Yeah.
And also about his new book, When Buyers Say No. There'll be lots of great tips in that episode. So stay tuned and check out his other 2 episodes on the. There's episode 21 and episode 23 with Tom Hopkins as well. Check those out for your insights and sales tips. And Dwayne, I want to thank you so much.
Thanks, Everald.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with this traffic coming out, we now have to go the other way.
That's right. Exactly.
All right.
Good.
So great, folks. You've been listening to the Reid Method Insider Podcast, episode 26. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode coming up. And send your feedback to insider@thereidmethod.com. Until next time,
thank you.
See ya.
For more information, please visit us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or www.thereidmethod.com.